स्वामिन्नमस्ते नतलोकबन्धो कारुण्यसिन्धो पतितं भवाब्धौ मामुद्धरात्मीयकटाक्षदृष्ट्या ऋज्व्यातिकारुण्य सुधाभिवृष्ट्या स्वामिन्नमस्ते 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 स्वामिन्नमस्ते। ज्ञानस्वरूपं निजभावयुक्तं आनन्दमानन्दकरं प्रसन्नं योगीन्द्रमीड्यं भवरोगवैद्यं श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि। श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि। नित्याय सत्याय चिदात्मकाय नव्याय भव्याय परात्पराय शुद्धाय बुद्धाय निरञ्जनाय नमोऽस्तु नित्यं गुरुशेखराय नमोऽस्तु नित्यं गुरुशेखराय नमोऽस्तु नित्यं गुरुशेखराय। जय गुरु, जय गुरु, जय गुरु। Today I am going to discuss Prabhati Rashmi number 18 from the book Volume 1. This Prabhati Rashmi Swamiji spoke on 2nd February 1998, and the topic given is fulfillment. All of us, we want fulfillment in life. We lack fulfillment. In our life, our aim is always to gain peace, happiness, well-being, health, and whatever we gain, we find that the mind always looks for something more. We are never satisfied, so we are never fulfilled also. Always there will be a feeling there is something more to be gained. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita of that state which every human being can reach, and that is the state of the Atma, attaining which or realizing which one will feel that there is nothing more to be gained. Yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tataha yasmin sthito na dukkhena guruna api vichalyate. That is, gaining which one will feel there is nothing more to be attained. Manyate nadhikam tataha yam labdva cha aparam labham. Any other gain apart from that, one will feel that it is not necessary at all, because one becomes full. And also Krishna says to Arjuna that Arjuna, it is not only that. If one is in that state, then whatever adversity comes, it may be a huge adversity, a huge affliction. Guruna dukkhena api na vichalyate. So even if there is a huge dukkha, one will not be shaken by it, one will not be affected by it. I think all of us want that kind of a state. Because in our life, we find that there is happiness, no doubt, and there is unhappiness also. But we are not knowing how to remain afloat in happiness and misery. Mostly with happiness, we are very much elated. We feel that God's grace has been on us, and we feel very joyous, delightful, mind becomes very light. But that happiness never stays for long. Even if for some longer duration it is there, it is bound to be over. And only when something apart from happiness comes, which we are not ready to accept, we call that we are faced with dukkha. Faced with dukkha. We always want sukha, happiness. But even if we get happiness, we are always fearful of losing it. And we are always fearful of getting that which we do not like. So our life is like that. Life is not having that happiness or that kind of fulfillment which never decays, never goes away. So this is one state which Krishna is promising to Arjuna, and through Arjuna to everybody in this world, that there is a state attaining which you will feel that there is nothing more to be attained. So that is fulfillment. So what is this fulfillment? If we want to have fulfillment in life, what should we do? It is true that we do not, and it is true that we want it. But is there anything to be done? Now Swamiji on this day particularly is talking about fulfillment in life. He starts with the Bhagavad Gita shloka from second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 55th verse number 55. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sthita prajnastadocyate. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sthita prajnastadocyate. That is, when all the desires, sarvan kaman, manogatan sarvan kaman, the desires, all desires or every desire of the mind is left. One renounces. He says, O Partha, O Arjuna, when that happens, and also leaving or renouncing the desires of the mind, one is still satisfied remaining within oneself. Then that person is called Sthita Prajna. His prajna is, his knowledge is sthita, that he is well established in the knowledge. He'll never be affected by any wave that world brings to him. So what should be there? The desires should be renounced. And one should be happy within oneself. That is, remaining within oneself, having only his own Atma with him, that is embraced by his own self, he is happy. Now what is this actually? We are happy with various objects. Our sense organs are 5, and 5 of them go to 5 different directions. And we perceive the objects of a particular sense organ, and we want to acquire them. Now, when we attain what we want, our desires are fulfilled, we are happy, no doubt, but that happiness is dependent on a particular object, outside object in the world, whatever our sense organs are going to, and our mind also allows the sense organs to go to them, and we get the particular objects, and in our possession, we are happy. So our happiness is because of the objects, dependent on the objects. Now, this shloka is saying, let the desires fall off. So when the desires fall off, the mind will not be wanting anything. But still, Atmani eva Atmana tushtaha. Atmani eva Atmana tushtaha. One is still happy. That is, there is no object to make you happy. You have not attained or you have not acquired any object of your choice which you had wanted because you don't want anything. But still you are happy. By what? By yourself. In yourself, by yourself, you are happy. There is a sloka in Viveki Chudamani which says, Swasmin sada kridati nandati swayam nirantara anandarasena triptaha. Swasmin sada kridati nandati swayam. That is, one who is in that state, he rejoices in Swasmin, rejoices in oneself, Swasmin. He doesn't look for happiness outside him. He looks within for happiness, whether there is no material object. Outside, when we try, we want to acquire a house, a car, some gadgets, maybe a son-in-law or maybe a daughter-in-law, maybe some position in the office, some respect, some prestige. We want all these things which are outside us. And as I was explaining, our happiness is dependent on these objects. But suppose we look inside us, such a person who has left all his desires, he looks into oneself and he tries to find out the joy within oneself. There is a fountain of joy inside, where we do not look into in our normal way. We are always looking outside for joy, outside for satisfaction, outside for delight. We don't look into ourselves. There is a fountain of joy which is constantly coming out. And this shloka says, Swasmin sada kridati nandati swayam. So, such a person who is a seeker, who wants to realize the self, he looks inside. He then rejoices in himself. Swayam swasmin sada kridati. He himself, in himself, sada, always, sports, nandati, rejoices. And what is the effect of that? Nirantaranandarasena triptaha. So he touches that anandarasa, which is constantly flowing from inside, from the Atma. Atma is Satchidananda. It is the nature of Satchit Ananda. So there is a fountain of joy inside. And when we touch that, we are able to drink that Nirantara Anandarasena. He drinks that Anandarasa, which comes by itself, independent of anything whatsoever, and makes one triptaha, contented, fulfilled. This sloka also is the same. The one that I said is from Viveka Chudamani. It starts with Nakityate na vishayaish pramodate. I told only the last two lines. Here Swamiji is making reference to Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 55th verse. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sita prajnastadocyate. So, atmani eva atmana tushtaha. When he leaves all his desires, he becomes satisfied, fulfilled in his own self, by himself. He doesn't want anything else. Nothing is necessary. That kind of a person is called Sthita Prajna. So, Swamiji first, that day in the Prabhat Rishmi, when he started, you can imagine Swamiji sitting on his chair, closing his eyes and talking. He's saying, he first chanted these 2 lines and then said, last night we had some discussion on mantra japa. Mantra is a kind of compact formula in which an idea or attitude is expressed. So mantra japa, many do japa of mantra by themselves. When somebody is initiated by a Sadguru, the Sadguru gives him a mantra to chant. And that becomes the whole anchor in the life of a Shishya. So, Swamiji is saying mantra is a kind of compact formula and the mantra will have a meaning. So, it is a formula in which an idea or attitude is expressed. Somebody was repeatedly asking me whether the mantra will mean everything in the life of a seeker. So some devotee has been asking Swamiji, some devotee who has come to the ashram for a visit maybe, is asking Swamiji, quite a few times must have asked him, whether the mantra will mean everything in the life of a seeker. My dear boy, for a serious seeker, mantra means everything. Everything related to his spiritual life as well as otherwise. So the mantra which you have opted, it may be given by the Guru or you have opted it yourself. That mantra should be everything in life, for each and everything, whether you are in happiness, whether you are in danger, whether you are in anxiety, this, you will hold on to this mantra and this mantra alone. I was explaining to him that our personality has a visible part consisting of the 5 senses of perception and the 5 organs for activity. We all know that we have 5 senses for perception and we have 5 organs of activity, hands, feet, etc. It also has an invisible part which begins from the mind inward. So the visible part is the sense organs and the organs of activity. And what is invisible? Invisible is the mind, which is inward. We are not able to see it. Now, one has to understand which part, the visible or the invisible, is the fundamental, causal, and the ultimate one. Now, there are two parts. One is the visible part, one is the invisible part. One has to understand, and generally we are not given to such deep thinking. When we start thinking, especially taking to a spiritual life, when we start going to our inner world, we start understanding which is fundamental, causal and the ultimate one, the visible or the invisible one. In order to use the organs both for perception and action, there must be a conscious move from the mind. Now, 2 are there, visible and invisible. Whether the sense organs have to act, that is, I smell, I see, I hear, I taste, etc., or with my hands or legs, I act. Whatever I do, the mind has to give a direction that you do this. Unless the mind is connected to the actions of the sense organs alone will not work. And not also the limbs. Suppose somebody is sleeping. You bring a very nice fragrant flower, say a rose, and bring the flower near the nose. Now, the person is sleeping, you open the eyes and show the flower. When the person gets up in the morning, you ask, did you see the flower? Did you smell the flower? What will be the reply? The reply will be, no, I didn't see. Because the mind was not there. Mind was still at that time. So for any action of the organs, sense organs, mind has to act, mind has to be associated. Now, where is the mind? The mind is inside. So Swamiji is saying, in order to use the organs both for perception and action, there must be a conscious move from the mind. Again, after the perception or the action takes place, who feels that I have perceived or I have been acting? So mind has to give a conscious move for the action or the perception. And after it has been done also, who is the one who understands that it has been done? It is in the mind. So, all this Swamiji is saying to make us understand the role of the mind. Where do you find the final results of all interactions? So, the mind is not only merely the origin of all activities, it is the terminal point as well. So, the mind is propelling and also the reactions are understood by the mind alone. Both the mind is doing. Mind thus becomes supreme, the cause as well as the terminus of all that has to be done, achieved or gained. The mind thus becomes supreme, the cause as well as the terminus of all that has to be done, achieved or gained. It is this mind that we try to act upon by chanting a mantra. Why so much Swamiji told about the mind? Because he started from the question that somebody was asking, what is mantra japa? And is a mantra the supreme in life? So this mind, it is this mind that we try to act upon by chanting a mantra. It is this mind that we try to purify by all our spiritual pursuits. Very, very important. So we are chanting mantras. Say we are chanting, just chanting. You never said mantra. Many people, when we early in the morning will take bath, light a lamp, sit near the puja shrine and chant some mantras or chant some slokas. What are we activating? It should not be just like a parrot-like chanting, a mechanized chanting. The mind has to be activated by the sound, by the meanings of the sound. Even if we are chanting some slokas, what are the meanings of the words? Through that, the mind has to be activated. And definitely so, when we are chanting a mantra repeatedly, the same mantra, the mind itself is getting activated. And it is this mind that we try to purify by all our spiritual pursuits. Whatever spiritual pursuits we do, whether we sit near a shrine and read Bhagavatam every day, 1 chapter, 2 chapters, is a spiritual pursuit. We chant some slokas, it is a spiritual pursuit. We meditate for say half an hour to 45 minutes every day, twice. It is a spiritual pursuit. We do some Nam Sankirtana every day. It is a spiritual pursuit. But what for are we doing it? Is it to be just done because we have to do it? Or because it is a punya karma? Or is every spiritual pursuit should be aimed at purifying ourselves, That is purifying the mind. How will we purify the mind? With our spiritual pursuit. There comes how we look at the pursuit, how we do our pursuit. We may be thinking that we are spiritual, we may be thinking we are devotional, but each devotional act and each spiritual act must purify our being, the mind, and only in the pure mind the self reveals itself. So many times we have heard this, that just like when a mirror is not polished well, we won't be able to see our face properly. If the mirror is dusty, we will not be able to see our face properly. But suppose the dust is wiped away or the mirror is polished very well, we will be very clearly seeing our face. It is like that. As long as the mind is impure, with desires, with ego, with possessiveness, waves of them constantly is going and coming into the mind. The mind is not still. The self which I am always, that self is not revealed. It is there, but it gets veiled by the impurities of the mind. That is why the mind has to be purified. So, mind thus, it is this mind that we try to act upon by chanting a mantra. It is this mind that we try to purify by all our spiritual pursuits. What will happen when the mind becomes pure? Swamiji is saying, a purer mind will be able to think clearer, understand better, generate the right emotions and right motivations at the proper time. It will be able to assimilate the inputs better and come out with proper reactions with more and more readiness. And finally, it will generate whatever fulfillment is necessary. So, let me read it again. A purer mind will be able to think clearer, understand better, generate the right emotions and right motivations at the proper time. When the mind is pure, that is, the ripples of anxiety, fear, desires are not there, mind will become clearer, purer. It will be able to understand and have right motivations, right emotions, etc. And it will be able to assimilate the inputs better and come out with proper reactions. Even the reactions will be most suitable, most apt, with more and more readiness. Finally, it will generate whatever fulfillment is necessary. I said, Swamiji is continuing, whatever fulfillment is necessary, Swamiji is repeating. He said, and finally, it will generate whatever fulfillment is necessary. Swamiji is repeating this word. I said, whatever fulfillment is necessary. This fulfillment, the mind is capable of generating all by itself. So when the mind is pure, whatever fulfillment is necessary will come. And this fulfillment will be generated all by itself, independent of anything. Atmanyeva atmana tushtaha. It will be satisfied within itself, by itself. You may possess the entire universe, but still not have fulfillment. One may have entire universe, that is, such a rich person is the Malik of or the possessor of the entire universe, but still one is not fulfilled. The universe does not enter your system. It is only the thought of possession that gives you the possessional joy. Suppose we are joyful, we wanted to acquire something, maybe I want to buy a house is bought. It is only the feeling that I have now a house of my own, I have bought it, whatever I wanted to buy, that feeling only is giving me joy. It's not that the house is entering my inside and that is why I am joyful. It is only the feeling. Now, the universe does not enter your system. It is only the thought of possession that gives you the possessional joy. Whether you marry and become a parent, whether you get a good employment and have plenty of money, none of these things is going to enter your being. It is only the sense of possession that will give you the joy. But will such possessional joy give you fulfillment? Swamiji is explaining in various ways. He says that if you are the king of, or the emperor of the whole universe belongs to you, will you have fulfillment? Then he takes the example that even if you possess the whole universe, the universe and doesn't enter you, you have a feeling that you are the king of this universe. Suppose you marry, you feel that now I am having a family. You have a child. You feel that I am a parent. You have a very good job. You have a feeling that now I have grown to this position. I have a big job. All these things are remaining outside. Only the feeling that I have this. I have a job. I have a wife. I have a family. I have a child. This feeling of possession alone gives you a joy. But all this sense of possession, how long does it stay? Does it give fulfillment? It doesn't. No. Because along with all these possessions, suppose I acquire a lot of money, I feel that I have. So there is a lot of joy. One gets married, you feel I have a family, you get joy. A house, a car, a child, a position, a promotion, everything you have. But does it give you fulfillment? It may be giving some kind of satisfaction. It may be giving some kind of happiness for the time being, maybe for some time. But it is always smeared and filled with fear of losing. So fulfillment doesn't come. All the joys that we have from outside objects, it is smeared with the feeling of losing them. So fulfillment is not had. Fulfillment will be had when the mind is properly treated to become pure and the hindrance to fulfillment are removed. So, fulfillment will not be had. You may be a king of the whole universe, still you will not be fulfilled because there is a fear of losing it. Anxiety about losing. So, what does it say? That Swamiji is now telling fulfillment will be had only when the mind is treated to become pure. And the hindrances to fulfillment are removed. What are the hindrances for fulfillment? And what are the methods to become pure? It becomes the question. Swamiji is saying, in no case you will become fulfilled by external objects. For becoming fulfilled, one must become pure. So what are the things, what are the disciplines, or what are the ways to become pure? That is a question. And also, what are the hindrances towards fulfillment? That also have to be removed. So these are, the hindrances are, we have so much desire. We have to constantly be disciplined to remove undue desires, undue possessiveness and undue ego. Let us see what Swamiji says further. And when the mind is properly developed to have fulfillment, will it need any of these external objects, situations, or possessions? When the mind is properly developed to become happy without any objects, it will not need any external object, any external situation, or any external possession. We are only looking for objects, situations, people to become happy. Either objects, we need some material objects to become happy. We need some particular people. When we meet them, we become happy. We want some situations in which we feel we'll remain happy. But all these are external. They do not make us fulfilled. And when we train our mind to become pure to such an extent that no desire is there, that is when we want objects, places, situations, people to become happy, those are our desires. When we train our mind to become pure, we don't need anything. We train ourselves to look within and tap that source of joy inside us, which is constantly flowing and Ananda is constantly radiating, then we will not need any external situation, object, or people. That is why Bhagavad Gita says, when a man renounces all the desires of his mind and remains contented within himself, delighted by the self alone, he is called asthita prajna. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sthita prajnastadochyate. This is the sloka Swamiji started with. And he has come back to it and explaining what is fulfillment. So what do we want in this life? We really want fulfillment because we find that we are happy for a certain time. Then there is a void in the mind. We want something else to do. We finish something, then we want something else. We finish that, we want something more. It is okay. But suppose we keep on doing action after action with an aim to remain inside ourselves so that whatever we do or we don't do, our joy comes only from within ourselves, and we don't look towards the outside situations to make us happy. Is it not good? Is it not better? So, Krishna is telling Arjuna that when a man renounces all the desires of the mind and remains contented within himself, delighted by the self alone, he is called asthita prajna. So this, for any seeker, my dear children, we are active. We are, from the time we get up in the morning to the time we go for sleeping, we are doing something or other. Either the everyday work that is given to us by God, or our spiritual routines and disciplines, whatever we have to do. We should never forget that we must train ourselves, we must look into ourselves, try to find that spot of joy which is ours, which belongs to us alone, and remaining there, we will be constantly fulfilled and contented. Nothing else in this world can make us happy and contented. Desires of the mind are hindrances to fulfillment. Swamiji said earlier that we have to treat the mind to become pure, and the hindrances to fulfillment have to be removed. Now he is saying, desires of the mind are hindrances to fulfillment. When the desires are removed, the mind becomes still. When the desires are removed, the mind becomes still. When there is desires, undue desires, then what happens? Constantly mind will feel, we have got whatever we desire, a little more, a little that one, little this one. So constantly their mind will be in a ripple or wave. It will never be still. In Viveka Chudamani, there is a sloka which says, Vakye niruddhe manasa prasannata, manaprasade paramartha darshanam. Paramatma darshanam. It says, Vakye niruddhe manasa prasannata. When we remove these desires, we are constantly trying to make our mind agitated, disturbed, and restless. What happens? The mind becomes placid, tranquil. And when the mind becomes such, then one gets, in that still mind, the Atma is revealed. In that stillness, a joy wells forth from within. The joy that I was telling, that there is a fountain of joy inside. It is there. We don't look at it. We don't try to find. Actually, we go here and there to see so many faults, so many things, so many sightseeing and all that. It's not bad. It's good. But there is such a treasure inside us. And that joy will never be over. When we become happy through outside objects, that joy gets over after some time. In Bhagavatam it says that once you come to know that this kind of a state is there within you, immediately you should leave and start pursuing it. So that should be any seeker, any devotee, when we come to know about this, that should be our attitude. How throughout our daily work, how we can always remain connected to our own source. Never forget it. Never forget where from our energy is coming, where from all our capability has come. Never forget it. Remain connected and then do work. When the desires are removed, the mind becomes still. In that stillness, a joy wells forth from within. When that joy is felt, you will not have any kind of urge for possession. You will be fulfilled. To generate this fulfillment, the mind does not need any external possession. So when that joy is felt, and that joy is independent of anything, so where is the question of possessing something and then getting the joy? This joy is without possessing anything. It comes by itself, spontaneous, self-radiating joy. It is there. And it is ours, our own. It's not that I am seeing somebody else's joy. It is not that it is somewhere else and I have to see it. It is within myself. I am that. I am that. That feeling in the day, can we not at least sometimes remind ourselves that I am that and get drenched by that joy, drenched by that nectar, and then do all our work? I always feel that Swamiji, these are Prabhat Rashmis, he has told, and he's talking and talking and talking. So many scriptures are there. And we are listening and listening and listening. But what is the use of this? We have to take it to our daily life. Our daily life is very ordinary. We get up in the morning and we start doing our work. But am I different from my own source? We feel that we are different. We don't even look at our own source. We start getting that feeling of I-ness, mindness. This is I and this is mine. I am doing everything. That feeling of kartritva comes. We forget where is our strength. We forget how we have come to this world. We forget what we are connected to that presence which is there throughout this whole universe, the one self, the consciousness. We forget that. But when we are reading this, my dear children, this is the words of a realized master. Whatever a realized master speaks, it is for the benefit of everybody who listens. It is for us to listen and practice, listen and assimilate. We have not practiced it so far. At whichever stage we understand the value of these words, the greatness of these words, from that time we must practice. We'll forget, we'll fall down, but again we should practice and make this our own. Then only all this listening, all this reading, it will be meaningful, otherwise not. So, you know how beautiful this is. What a beautiful word and sentence these are. When that joy is felt, in that stillness, I'll read again. Desires of the mind are hindrances to fulfillment. When the desires are removed, the mind becomes still. In that stillness, a joy wells forth from within. When that joy is felt, you will not have any kind of urge for possession. You will be fulfilled. To generate this fulfillment, the mind does not need any external possession. My dear children, these are the words of a realized master. Whatever he has realized, he is telling us. He is just, whatever he has realized, he has felt, he is just trying to describe in words. And it doesn't mean that he has realized himself alone. He feels that every one of us can realize it. And that is why relentlessly he talks and tells us. Then what will remain? Your body. Whatever it is will continue to live, interacting with the world, acting in the world, but with fulfillment. In the light of this fulfillment, if the way of your life is going to change, it will change. If you are going to be exclusive about this fulfillmental life, you will become one like us. So when the fulfillment comes, body will still remain, and the body will be in the surrounding and in the atmosphere where it is. If in the light of the fulfillment, if the way of your life is going to change, it will change. And in this fulfillment, if the way of life changes, sometimes it may change. You'll feel like leaving everything. Swamiji is saying, your life may become like us, that is like a sannyasa life. You may leave everything and take to sannyasa. What did happen in my case? My body was young and I felt, Sthitaprajnata having been experienced, I must simply live after this. Other things I don't need. So Swamiji felt like that, so his life changed. Thus, in some cases, it may so happen that you become exclusively spiritual. So when the fulfillment, you try for fulfillment, it may happen that your life will change. If for my joy I don't need the world, then for what else do I need it? I don't need it, but the world remains around me for the fact of my embodiment. So, even if say, a person wants to renounce and become a sannyasin, the body will still live in this world, and whatever is necessary to be done in this world, he will do. The born body lives its term, and I continue to interact with the world in the light of whatever I have found, felt, and known to be supreme and fulfilling. So he's talking about himself. The body he took to sannyasa, and whatever was necessary around him, he has lived his life like that. That is how sages and knowers live in this world. Well, whether he will pursue the path exclusively or not, leave the question to itself. But he told about himself that when he pursued this fulfillment and his life took a turn, he wanted to become a Sthitaprajna, he became, and his life took to this sannyasa life. And whatever he has done since the body lived in this world, remaining in this Sthitaprajnata, remaining in that fulfillment, whatever he had to do for this world, he has done. But whether you will pursue the path exclusively, that is another question. But all may not do so. You may or may not pursue it exclusively. If you don't pursue it exclusively, then the partial pursuit will coexist with your other pursuits in the world. Then also it is okay. Then also you are going towards fulfillment. In the objective world, with the material things, I did not get fulfillment. I understand that there is a state of fulfillment and I am pursuing that path of fulfillment. Even if I do not take to that exclusive spiritual path, this path of fulfillment, it will be coexisting partially with whatever is the life. Suppose most of you are in the household. So in your household life also, your life will be more expanded, more light, more with lack of affectedness because of this fulfillment that you have been pursuing. Then the partial pursuit will coexist with other pursuits in the world. Logically, with time and evolution, this pursuit should grow in depth and wholesomeness, and consequently, other interests should dwindle. And slowly, you will find that many of the unwanted desires will fall. Because slowly one will able to understand that keeping in the mind undue desires, fulfillment cannot be had. So undue desires will all fall off. To what extent it will grow cannot be said. No rule can be enunciated in this regard. Individuals differ widely. Sri Krishna remained active as a Kshatriya. Vasishtha remained active as a Brahmana. Vedavyasa and Shukamuni became ascetics. But the point is that everything proceeds from the mind, persists in the mind, and finally concludes in the mind. You should think about it well. Don't ask any further questions. Try to find answers yourself. So, he says that don't ask further questions. Try to find the answers yourself. Meaning what? Whatever he has said, try to pursue that, understand that, and what is it? That purify. To summarize it, purify the mind and remove all the desires from the mind, which are hindrances to fulfillment. This is what he has said. So I'll stop today. These are not to be read only once, I think each and every line we should read, think, and compare with one's own attitudes, how I can become purer, what are the undue desires still bothering me, why is it that I am not able to leave them, why is it that my mind is still restless. We should be working with happiness. Generally, we think we'll do this and we'll become happy. But we should pursue this, that as we do the work, we become happy. Why we can be so? That is called Atmani Eva Atmana Tushtaha. constantly remaining touched by the self alone, we forget ourselves. We understand that we are just some instrument in the hands of that big designer who has designed this world. Okay. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru. Sampurnam Jagadevanandanavaram Sarvepi Kalpadrumaah Gangam Vari Samastavari Nibaha Punya Samasta Kriyaha Vacha Prakrita Samskrita Shruti Shiro Varanasi Medini Sarvavasthitirasya Vastu Vishaya Drishti Parabrahmani Sarvavasthitirasya Vastu Vishaya Drishti Parabrahmani. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru.